West Virginia is back from the dead. Or are they? We'll see when they go to Kansas. And Kansas didn't look too bad against Boston College either. But let's talk about West Virginia for a minute. We had a lot of people criticizing Coach Neil Brown after that terrible road loss to Missouri. And yes, West Virginia did look horrendous. But you can see how Neil Brown coaches his players up. West Virginia fans had them dead in the water. I saw, numerous comments calling for him to be fired and all that stuff. I made a video to tell people, whoa, back off. He is a good coach. And the North Carolina State game proved it. I know it was a home game and it was a gold rush and all that stuff, but you still have to have the plays and the players come together to create a good game. And that's exactly what happened. And Neil Brown showed his brilliance in that game. There was a lot of misdirection. You would see a throw to the right side of the field and he would actually be cutting left, and that's how he would score, and vice versa. The run game, yikes, the run game still needs some work, but it did show a little bit of hope in the NC State game. The big deal for me was Austin Kendall. He looked like a deer in the headlights at Missouri. I mean, it was kind of scary. But the North Carolina State game, he looked way better. He was 27 for 40, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns with a completion rating of 67.5. That's pretty good. For the whole season, he's 69 for 107. That's not good. So that NC State game raised his numbers up significantly. So 69 for 107, 669 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. 2 very early interceptions in the Missouri game that pretty much killed West Virginia, and it was done and over with after that. But he came back and had a good game, showed some promise. So in the last video, I talked about how we saw Kansas lose to Coastal Carolina, and I said, hey, that gives me hope, Maybe West Virginia can go on the road and beat Kansas. Then they went to Boston College, who seems like a pretty decent ACC team, and held them scoreless in the second half and shellacked them 48-24. So the question is, which is the real West Virginia team and which is the real Kansas team, and who's going to show up on Saturday? It's just really hard to believe that Kansas is really that good. But Les Miles, he's a very good coach. That was a great hire for Kansas. He's already delivering on several promises. Carter Stanley, he's thrown for 586 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Not great, but for the Boston College game, he was 20 for 27, 238 yards, 74.1 completion rating, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So both quarterbacks for both teams had a monster game. Well, not a monster game, but a much better game. West Virginia's Austin Kendall against NC State, and Kansas's Carter Stanley against Boston College. So that's going to be an interesting matchup between quarterbacks. As far as the running game, West Virginia has got to figure that out. I don't know if it's setting up more screens or doing more toss sweeps, or I don't know. But they have got to figure out the run game, because Kansas, believe it or not, they do have a decent run game. Khalil Herbert has 36 attempts, 357 yards, and 2 touchdowns, averaging 9.9 yards a carry. All right, you want to compare that to Kennedy McCoy, 28 attempts for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. Oof, that's not good. He has got to get it going. West Virginia cannot be one-dimensional. We need that run game to balance things out. But I did like the play call selection for Coach Brown. There was a few times where he kind of fell back into calling some ill-advised plays, but he always cleaned it up. Scared me a few times, but ultimately came back and made some brilliant play calls. I liked it. West Virginia held NC State to 6 second-half points. That is amazing. And then I talked about how Kansas held Boston College to 0 second-half points. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch in Lawrence. I don't see the other team holding the other team till that low in the second half. But I do think this game will be won in the second half. Don't see a blowout happening. Kansas snapped their 48-game Power 5 road losing streak against Boston College. So that was an accomplishment for Kansas. Kudos. West Virginia is 7-1 against Kansas in football since they've joined the Big 12, but we all remember 2013 when West Virginia traveled to Lawrence and Kansas beat them convincingly. I don't think that's going to happen this time. I think West Virginia's defense is playing very well right now. I think their offense has more confidence. Kansas did have a great game. But then I remember the game against Coastal Carolina, and that's not a very good football team. So maybe this was an aberration. I'm going to take West Virginia in this game. Give me the Mountaineers 31, Kansas 24. Thank you for watching. I hope you come back and see me on the next video.